Welcome or welcome back. I'm the Ink Archivist, here today with the Diamine 2022 Inkvent Calendar, Green Edition, and today we're looking at number 11 of this calendar, which is Appletini. Appletini is a green color modeled after a sour apple martini, and I'm not sure what the Christmas tie-in is here, but maybe it's just you're pouring out a drink in celebration. This is a standard ink, so no glitter scent or otherwise, and it is a very beautiful and vibrant green, kind of a lime green, a little bit more vibrant than a grass green. Now I just so happened to have my green Kaweco clean as I was moving to review this ink, so I decided to fill it up in this pen, and I'm so glad that I had this available because this is actually a pretty good match for this pen, so I'll get into that in a second. And this is the Kaweco Frosted Sport in lime. And this has a medium nib. So I did up a little bit of writing here so you can see the pen and the ink side by side. And as you can see, the ink is a little bit more green, a little bit darker than the pen, but that I think is good, adds for that readability. I wouldn't want it to be as light as the pen anyways, but if you're looking for a match for the Frosted Lime, Appletini definitely is a good choice. And a beautiful shader, as you see here, and we'll get to on the further writing sample. But for now, we will move on to the ink swabs. So we have Tomoe River Paper, HP 32, Apica, and Rhodia. Now, besides that good amount of shading, there's not a lot to crazy about this ink. It's a little bit on the dry side, but other than that, it has pretty standard characteristics. And as you can see, even on the Tomoe River paper, you're not getting any real depth of color or intrigue. It seems just straight up green. And it keeps a nice vibrancy across all four of these papers, and they look very similar on each. I will say there was some kind of strange granulation happening on the Apica that you'll see in the close-up. I'm not quite sure why that happened, and I doubt that you would see it in regular writing anyways. So yeah, there you see kind of on the top end of that, it's kind of a little bit mottled. And on the Rhodia, you can see on the top there's this kind of darker outlining in places. Kind of you can see there's this dark green line around the top there. So that's interesting. Now moving on to the notes I took with this for the readability. I'm going to give this ink an arbitrary 6.5 out of 10. This ink is verging on the light side. I think it was helped greatly by the fact that I had it in a medium nib rather than a fine or extra fine. And I think the vibrancy is going to make it an unattractive option for some people who don't want, you know, a stabbing green color on the page. But moving on to the more extensive writing sample and comparisons, I'm starting with the Sailor Hokuro with a 2.0 stub nib for the title. And this really lets that shading shine. As you can see with the earlier writing sample in this one, I do think the shading is pretty impressive and fun, so it's a nice little add-on for this ink. Now for the sample sentences under this, I start with a Hokuro fine nib, and then I move on to using that Kaweco medium nib that I inked up earlier. I did receive some advice to always make sure that I'm including both a finer nib and a broader nib in all of my writing samples, and I had recorded this beforehand. I just happened to have two different kind of nib sizes included, but in the future I will be using my Fonte, which is a bit broader, to do a broad writing sample if I don't have it inked up in something that has a broader nib, and then I'll be using the Hokuro, or if I'm inking a fine nib, then I'll use that. So I will be more cognizant of labeling and making sure that I'm including a variety in the future. So thank you for that recommendation. I always appreciate the feedback. And on this one, the Hokuro, you can see it's kind of hard to read with that fine nib, as I was kind of alluding to on the writing sample. I definitely think you're going to want this in probably a fine or a medium at least. I'll still put it in extra fine though because I'm a crazy person, but So I have Appletini swabbed down for the comparison, and now I'm going in with Diamine Apple Glory Green on the apple theme today. And this similarly has good shading, it's just darker. I also think it might be a little bit more cool toned than Appletini, but maybe it's just lighter. Now I have Shikurin from Irisuzuku. Beautiful, kind of more natural grass green. Definitely a more subdued option. And lastly, I have an ink sample of Dominant Industries Spring Fields that I thought I would add. This is a pearl ink, one of their shimmer inks, and it's definitely leaning a lot more towards like the yellowy side of things, as you can see. So not a fantastic comparison to Appletini. And here's the last look at all those. And now we have the finished ink swabs with the names on them. I honestly didn't think I'd have any interest in this ink at all. I think it really helps that it matched the Kavenko Frosted Sport Lime. And I would consider getting a bottle if I ran out of the sample, just so I have something to match that pen. But that's it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'd love to hear your thoughts and any feedback from you. Thank you and have a good one. Bye.